Well, hello, everybody. I'm Richie Soares, the hostess with the Homeschool Mom Summer Summit, and I have a few special guests here with us today from For the Silent. And this is Kendall, and this is Taylor. We are so excited for you guys to be here in the summit, and we're so excited to have For the Silent here with us. Would you all like to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Absolutely. So, For the Silent, we are an organization local to East Texas, and our goal is to end sex trafficking of youth and exploitation sorry, I'm saying that one already. Our goal is to end sex trafficking and exploitation of youth. So, we believe that all girls have inherent worth and value. And we believe that trafficking and exploitation disregard that worth and begins to treat people as a product. So we want to empower the voices of the vulnerable and exploited youth so that they're able to thrive. So that's our goal.
Yeah, and some of the ways just kind of practically that we approach that idea of finding ways to empower girls to thrive is we offer youth development programming. We do like an individualized approach to case management. So all of the girls in our program get to meet with an advocate and work through goals one-on-one, depending on her scenario and her situation. Because all of the youth in our program are either very high risk, very vulnerable for being exploited, or have already experienced exploitation at some point in their life. So we do all of this, and the main goal is building trusted relationship while we get to teach valuable skills that help them stay safe, help them have choices as they get older, and help them build really the tools that they need to have a life that's thriving and healthy. So we offer an opportunity for them to engage in healing work and work that's empowering for themselves so that they can live a life that's free of exploitation and trafficking.
Oh, wow. That sounds really involved. I love that. That is so wonderful. How blessed the girls are to find you guys. So just real quick, I know this wasn't on our notes yet, but I am curious now that we're talking about it. How did they find you guys?
That's a great question. So we get referrals from a bunch of different referral resources through partnerships that we've made in Smith County. So that might be our local juvenile justice system, CPS caseworkers, that might be people that work with kids that have experienced some sort of abuse or neglect. So our local children's advocacy agency, local law enforcement partners. Essentially, what we do as an organization is we look at the research and say, who is most vulnerable to exploitation and where can we connect with people that are already addressing those populations. And so we build relationships with those people, and then they are referring kids to us that then get involved in our programs.
Oh, wow. That is so neat.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's a village. We really say all the time that like everyone has a part to play in the fight against trafficking, and so we really love linking with other serving organizations in our community.
Well, I think it's wonderful what you guys are doing. So just thank you from all of us. I know it's not easy, but thank you so much for doing that. It's wonderful.
Well, thank you guys for having us here and talking to us about it. We're really excited to get to spread awareness and share some of what we've experienced here. So we're looking forward to the chat.
Okay, good. I'm happy y'all are here. I sought you guys out because it's just human trafficking to me. It's just near and dear to my heart. I don't have any personal experience with it, or I don't know anybody, but I guess it's that huge empathy factor. I just don't want. My heart just goes out to any of the kids that go through anything like that. So we want to be part of the cause and help the cause and just spread awareness. So that's why I really was hoping that you guys would be on today. So I'm happy you guys are here.
Thank you for inviting us.
Yes. So let's see. So can you give us a brief understanding of what trafficking looks like in East Texas?
Sure, absolutely. So the trafficking in and of itself is someone taking advantage of another person. So that's kind of the most basic form. At For the Silent, what we specifically address is domestic minor sex trafficking. It's a really big word. Sometimes you might also hear the term commercial sexual exploitation of youth. Again, those are terms that are used kind of in our industry, but we like to bring other people into and say, hey, if you hear this term, that's what it means. But essentially what that looks like in kind of a simple explanation would be a youth exchanging some sort of sex act for something of value. So that might be a ride, a place to stay. What we all kind of think of in its most basic form is money, but there are lots of other things that are valuable to youth. Sometimes that looks like drugs for kids that have struggled with addiction. And so that is kind of the simple way of what trafficking looks like as a whole. We sometimes hear things like the term teen prostitute when people are talking about trafficking, and that gets a little murky. But what we've learned and what actually the law says now is that a youth, someone who's under the age of 18 and is involved in the commercial sex industry, is a victim of human trafficking. Whether they made a decision or not, they're too young to be making that decision. And so we really stand by a belief that even if a youth seems to have made a choice to engage with a trafficker for something that she seemed valuable, because she's a child, she shouldn't have had to make that choice.
Right.
So that's kind of simple. Unfortunately, we don't have specific numbers of how many trafficking victims there are in East Texas or county by county. But what we do know numerically is that there are about 79,000 victims of commercial exploitation of youth at any given time in the state of Texas. So
Wow.
to give a little context to that number, something I always like to give people is if you've ever been to the Dallas Cowboys Stadium, it holds about 80,000 people. So that's roughly how many people we're talking. That was not a certain number taken at a snapshot in time. That was a research study done by UT Austin about 5 years ago that gave us this understanding of kind of at any point in time, we know that's about how many youth are being exploited. Now, our numbers are difficult to get a hold of because this is an issue that lives in the shadows, but that's kind of what we have to work with and is quite frankly the best number we've seen in the history of addressing this issue, the most accurate information. So then we take that and we say, well, it might look different in Tyler or in even a smaller community in Texas than trafficking does in Dallas or Houston. So what we find is most simply, it doesn't typically look like what you're going to see in movies, TV shows, or even big news stories coming out of a city that gets a lot of attention, maybe of a child or a youth being kidnapped and put into exploitation. More often what we see in East Texas and really across the board is that youth from really hard places, they may have a family history of exploitation or of trauma. They may have past childhood trauma of their own. They may have some sort of system involvement or social struggles. Traffickers notice those vulnerabilities, pay attention to those, and then they meet or promise to meet some sort of physical or emotional need. So that's kind of most often how a youth ends up in an exploitative relationship here in East Texas. That may be someone posing as a love interest that they meet online or in person, and then eventually the expectations of the relationship change. It goes from it's just you and me, we're in this together, we're boyfriend and girlfriend, to now there's a different set of expectations, and the introduction of the sex industry kind of begins as a slow process. So every story is different. I can tell you that I've been dealing with kids that have been exploited I've worked with people that have experienced abuse and trauma for about 10 years, and I've been at For the Silent for about 3. And I've never seen two stories that are alike, even two girls from the same trafficker.
Wow.
And what that tells us is there's not a formula for how trafficking occurs in our city. It's much more nuanced and complex than that. Unfortunately, it would be easier if it was a formula for us to address it.
That's true.
But it's where a trafficker finds a vulnerability in a youth's life and then takes advantage of that for their own gain. That's the simplest way to explain like the nuance and the stories that happened day in and day out with kids from hard places.
Does that happen a lot? You used an example about meeting online. Do you think that that's one of the most, what's my word? I don't want to say popular, but you
Yeah,
know what I'm saying.
definitely. Yeah, yeah. In my experience, recruitment online is incredibly common. So one of the kind of early interventions and prevention methods that we encourage our staff, the families that we encounter, parents that we meet in any form, is just to really be educated about online safety, and to really educate and work with your kids on online safety. Unfortunately, the internet's not going anywhere. So we really encourage people and ourselves to figure out, like, how do we be as safe as possible within the context of our reality? And so I have a lot of conversations with teenage girls about how to interact online. It's sometimes a daily conversation. But I find that online recruitment, just like the whole rest of the world, the sex industry has moved online. Not only is recruitment happening online, but then the actual exploitation is often facilitated online as well.
Gotcha. Yeah, I can imagine. That's awful. But yeah, I think y'all are doing just a wonderful job. You're right though about the pattern. If there was some kind of pattern or formula, I think it would be a lot better to prevent it, But then I don't know if I should use the word treat or more like, what word would you use whenever you help these girls? What would you call that?
So we really believe in coming alongside and building long-term relationships to help them find connection and healing.
Okay. I love that.
So you'll often hear terms like survivor care. That's one that we feel really on board with that terminology. It is acknowledging her strength and her resilience to have left a situation that was unbelievably difficult. And so survivor care is a term you'll hear a lot when it comes to working with girls that have left the sex industry or left some sort of exploitative relationship.
Okay. So what does trafficking prevention look like on a daily basis?
Yeah. So on a daily basis at For the Silent, that is, we receive referrals from those community partners that we talked about for girls anywhere ages 12 through 21. So we do work with minors, and then and actually a teenage girl referred to me lately. She said, "That's pre-adulthood, Miss Taylor." She said, "You're not quite an adult yet, but up to age 21, because we recognize that a lot of the adolescent brain is still developing. And turning 18 does not magically help kids stay safe.
Right.
So that, and then we address, again, those who are most vulnerable for exploitation. So we take referrals from those research-based referral partners, and they have a couple of ways that they interact with us. One is they have the option to be involved in our youth development program. We call it Thrive. But what we do is we come together in a group setting, and we learn things like mental health skills, life skills, outlets for healthy creative expression, tools that not only help kids heal from their past trauma, but give them choices and opportunities to make different decisions in the future than maybe they even knew were possible for themselves. A lot of our kids come from generational trauma, and so they've seen histories in their families or in their friend circles of unhealthy responses because of the way that trauma interacts with the brain. And so we want to give them an awareness and an opportunity to learn something new, to make a different choice than maybe they've seen made before. So that's one of the ways they can be involved in our group. Those groups meet every single week. We have a meal together, and then we do some sort of activity that addresses those issues. So creative expression, life skills, mental health skills. And then the other side is all of our youth are paired with an advocate. So when a kiddo comes into our program, she usually comes in through the group setting first and kind of gets comfortable. She builds community and connection and belonging, all of the things that every single teenager wants. And then particularly a kid who has vulnerabilities to trafficking, we want to give them healthy spaces to exist and learn and grow and figure out how to grow up.
Right.
So then they have an advocate who meets with them and works on their goals. So we don't assign goals to kids in our care. We meet with them and say, what's important to you? What would a healthy life look like for you from your perspective? And then we build goals alongside her so that she's the one who is in charge of her fate and gets to be proud of her accomplishment. She didn't do it for her advocate, Miss Taylor. She did it because she didn't want it to.
Right.
So we really believe in giving her the dignity of being in control of her care. And sometimes those goals are things like getting a driver's license, getting public assistance if that's something that she hasn't had access to or really needs help with. There's those practical things, getting enrolled in school if she's been out of school, or GED if that's the right approach for her. And then it can look those ways or all the way to getting a meal together and just connecting over shared interests. Doing things like an activity I love to do with youth is we map out like what is her support system and helping her see what are the things in her life that are strengths, even if it feels like there's not a lot of good. How can we identify the positives and the strengths in her life and build on those?
Right.
So it looks a little bit different every day. There's always group opportunities, and then our advocates are always meeting one-on-one with kids and just addressing needs based on their situation and their current circumstances.
I like how you guys don't see them as a number. You see them as an individual. I love that.
One of our values, or you can go ahead.
I was just going to say the care that each girl receives is very specific to her. We really believe in empowering girls, and we think that that comes through them having a choice and them having a voice in what their future is, and not having just this set approach to here's the steps you have to take, but really letting them take ownership and get to see what they want accomplished in their lives.
That's so good. So empowering. And that's what y'all, that's like your tagline, right? Well, that's true. That fits you guys. I was wondering, though, I know this isn't part of our notes either, but I was wondering, so where are these girls? Where do they stay? Do they stay with you guys, or do they stay at their own home locally, or where do they locate? Or, like where do they stay?
Do you want to answer and then I'll jump in?
Sure, yeah. So really, again, it's going to look different for every girl. Some girls are going to be in different placements of safe housing and foster homes and care. And then some girls are going to still be with family or extended family. But placement is a difficulty that we're always looking for a safe spot for our girls.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, but just to make sure, to be clear, we do not have a residential program. So part of the way For the Silent operates is we will go into residential programs and work with girls. And even if she moves from place to place, we will follow her. That gives us the freedom to be a steady presence in her life, even when she goes from place to place. But we do not personally have a residential program. We partner with other ones in our area.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I was wondering, because you were talking about weekly group meetings. So I was just wondering, if they also live there too.
No, not quite. They, their parents, caregivers, whoever they live with, bring them to our offices to host group. And all of our kids live in different kind of scenarios. And if they're adults, some of them live with roommates and friends. Everyone's a little bit different.
Okay. So what steps can parents take to prevent exploitation in the lives of our children?
Yeah. You want me to answer?
Okay. So when we hear about exploitation, a lot of times there's a lot of fear. And I think the best way to, as a parent, address this with your kiddos is to just build open relationships, know what they're doing online, know who they're talking to and who their friends are, and not by interrogation, but by having that open relationship that they can trust you, they can talk to you, and just thinking about how do we set that up like with open dialogue. So I know I have 2 kids, and for me, there's often a temptation to lecture, but like opening it up to where, hey, I want to know what questions you have, and what do you think about this, and not always trying to give them the answers, but gently being able to guide them through that relationship.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. So research has shown us, and I'll tell you, with 10 years of experience has taught me that youth who have at least one safe, healthy, consistent adult, their outcomes in life when it comes to trafficking prevention are much higher than those who don't have a safe and healthy, consistent adult. So some parent-child relationships are difficult, and I encourage parents in that situation a lot of time, find what I would call a satellite, someone who reflects your values, but is another safe, healthy adult in your child's life. Sometimes that's a mentor, a youth group leader, a teacher, or a coach. But creating relationships with youth and with children where there's open, honest communication. So this doesn't seem like trafficking prevention, but even things like as your kids begin to get a little bit older, talk about difficult social topics. Let them process and think through their view on the world out loud with you, because what that does is that creates a foundation for talking about something that's difficult. And they then know, okay, if I say something that mom or grandma doesn't like, they're not going to get upset at me. We've talked about things where maybe I didn't know what to say before. And that, as odd as it sounds, is really healthy in creating connection, because then if your child or a child in your circle or in your community, maybe it's a neighborhood kiddo or a kid in your homeschool co-op, comes to you, they feel safer to come to you with an unsafe or an uncomfortable situation or something that they're not quite sure how to navigate.
Yeah.
And then also, you can talk to even young kids in safe ways about online safety. Like my son is 7. And so we already have conversations about, hey, there are things that are safe to share and there are things that are not safe to share. And like just chatting about like, hey, we want to keep you safe because we love you. And so what does that look like? You know, don't provide certain information online. And can you trust everybody behind a screen? Maybe that's not wise. And what does that look like? And just having those conversations of, just because someone says something on the internet doesn't necessarily make it true. And doing that in a gentle way with like even our young kids, we've started doing that.
That's a good idea. I have an 11-year-old, a 10-year-old, and a 4-year-old. So I've had these conversations with my 11 and 10-year-olds, but I haven't even considered having them with my 4-year-old. But he has his tablet, you know, and he does his thing. He plays Roblox, where there's chats. He doesn't know how to spell or whatnot yet. You know?
They're actually, go ahead, sorry.
Oh, no, I was just saying, and so I haven't really even considered approaching that subject with him yet, but it's a good idea to do it. I think the earlier the better.
Yeah, there are some great resources out there. Like love146.org is a great resource for teens. It's got like GIFs that walk through online safety. But even for young kids, there are books about like, there are pictures that are healthy for our brain and pictures that are unhealthy for our brain. And like really breaks it down into a very safe way for very young children. Like I was reading books like that with my son when he was 3, of just, there are safe pictures and unsafe pictures, and the computer can be really educational and exciting and you can learn all these things. And also there are things that are dangerous. And so like, here's how to stay safe, even like in a very gentle way for youth.
Yeah, there's some really great children's books out there that begin the process of educating. And one thing Kendall and I both share that we think is really helpful and a practical tool with talking with young children, because when they're really young, you're looking to prevent abuse as a whole, whether that's trafficking and commercial exploitation or some other kind of harm that could come to them from people in their lives. We talk a lot about the difference in secrets and surprises with kids. and share with young children, like, surprises are meant to be fun. They're always meant to be revealed to someone. They're not meant to be kept forever. And those are healthy and fun. That's like when we have a birthday present for someone, or we wrote a card for them because they've been on a trip and they're coming home. A secret maybe that someone asks you to never ever tell someone else is not okay and is not safe. So those are kind of just some really simple early ways that we have seen success in intervening and doing prevention work with young children.
Okay. Lisa asked, what's that website again that you were for the teen, I believe?
Yeah, it's called Love 146. So LOVE and then the numbers 1, 4, and 6.
Okay.
.org, and they are another survivor, like they have a prevention program and a survivor care program. They're based out of Houston, but have a couple of locations. But they have a lot of really great education on their website. And then they have an online safety tool for parents and one for teens that I refer people to a lot.
Okay. I was going to ask you some. Oh, so I take it that you are for screen safety and parental controls, and that's another way to definitely prevent human
Yes.
trafficking. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Honestly, a parent being engaged in their kid's life is one of the most preventative tools that you can have.
Yeah.
So that looks different for every parent, and I believe that you, as the parent, are gifted with the right information to make the decisions that are best for your kids, and you're the only one that has those tools. So just know that, like, engagement and involvement alone is hugely impactful and preventative in the lives of your children, but also children in your community. That could be neighbors or kids on sports teams, or if you're involved in the foster care community at all. Just being engaged and invested in the life of a child is a huge preventative factor. But then, yes, there are also very practical online safety monitoring tools and apps, and we are a big proponent of all of those.
I think of human trafficking or sex trafficking. I always thought that it was about kidnapping, but just us talking today, it has taught me that it's a lot more than just kidnapping. So that's real eye-opening.
Yeah, most movies do display kidnapping. It's a very clear and clean image of it. Shows a very easy entry point that's easy for movies to display. In reality, it's always complex. People are complex. And so it's always very specific. And most of the time, it's built through a relationship with someone that you know.
Wow. Okay.
Also, I will just say, like, one of the ways that when I started working in this world and first started hearing about trafficking, I thought the same thing. Mm-hmm. I think it's really common for all of us to start with this baseline of, well, there's no way that someone would get involved in such a scary and dangerous industry without kidnapping. But what we find is traffickers want their job to be easy, and kidnapping brings a lot of attention. And so that's why it's manipulation and building of trust, and then exploiting that trust is more common. And the way that we've learned most of this, I'll be honest with you, is through brave survivors who have stepped up and said, I want to educate the public about the reality of this. So there are women, a few off the top of my head, a woman named, oh goodness, I'm blanking on her name. Rachel Lloyd is a survivor who started an organization in New York, and she's written a book, and she speaks all over the country about her experience. There is a couple of women in Texas who travel and speak. There's a woman named Rachel Thomas who has started a curriculum to educate survivors and help them heal from the things that they've been through. And so survivors who have said, you know what, no more. I want people to understand, and I want people to have an accurate view of this industry have given all of us that haven't experienced exploitation a gift by stepping up and saying, we would love to tell you more about what this is really like.
Yeah. It's interesting when you're talking about traffickers. I just wonder if they call themselves traffickers, like the very definition of a trafficker. So
no trafficker that I've interacted with has acknowledged that that's what he's doing.
yeah.
Any trafficker that I've interacted with, or I've watched interviews with law enforcement when we were working on cases that our girls were involved in. There's always a very finesse way of justifying their behavior. And so it's usually, well, I was just helping her do what she already wanted to do. Or I'm just a manager, is one that I've heard a couple of times. So it's a spun view, but the heart of it is still the issue. It's just not addressing, like, I'm getting financial gain from someone else's body or someone else's work.
Right. Okay. I'm going to open it up unless y'all have anything else y'all might want to add to it.
We would love to answer questions.
Okay. It looks like we've had a few people watch us, and Lisa or anybody that wants to ask questions, the floor is open to y'all. In the meantime, let me okay. So in the meantime, while we're waiting for questions to pop up, so how can families in East Texas partner with For the Silent to empower youth in our community?
I love that question. That's part of my role here is I get to do community engagement, and I love seeing awareness spread throughout our city. So one, just sharing what you've learned is so powerful. Doing more research, like you can head over to our website, forthesilent.org, and just read more about what does trafficking look like in our context. But then there's so many ways to empower vulnerable youth. Like one is, like Taylor said, building those relationships with people in your community, in your neighborhood, on sports teams and at schools, or like homeschool co-ops and things like that. But then there's a million different ways to actually serve with For the Silent, if that's something families are interested in.
Sure.
Just how to connect with us can be really different depending on who you are. So for people who really love to cook, like we do these empowerment groups for our girls. And so bringing food for our girls is just such a united thing for our kids to get to sit down to a meal together. It builds such connections. So that's something we really love. And if you're really good at ordering takeout, that's another way to just jump in on that. It doesn't have to be home cooked. We have amazing volunteers who bring our girls all different types of food from restaurants in town. And, they're teenagers, so they love that.
I love that.
And then if your kiddo is on a youth group or some type of team, just organizing like the team to do a fundraiser of gift cards or a bake sale or something like that can make such a difference. And that also goes a really long way towards spreading awareness, and it opens up those conversations to have with the group of online safety and building connection and getting to talk about some of those difficult topics so that you can show like, hey, we're here for you and we can talk about these things and that's okay. And then like if you happen to have a side business, we've seen a lot of businesses really partner with us by providing in-kind donations or recurring donations, or we had one company, they had a special product, and for this limited time, percentage of the profits from that one product sale went to For the Silent, which was awesome. And we got to direct people to their business. And so things like that. And then if there's like no free time and, you've got a lot on your plate as homeschool moms and it's, hey, I can't organize that right now. Even just becoming a monthly donor is huge for our organization.
Where would they go to be a monthly donor? Just at your website, forthesilent.org?
Yeah, it's forthesilent.org/monthly-donation.
Okay, let me put that down.
Thank you.
Monthly donation. Okay. Lisa's asking, what about boys? Does this happen with them?
Yeah, I'd love to answer that. So I love that you're thinking big picture, Lisa. I think that it's important that we not only consider, girls in this equation, but we look at boys. It does happen to boys. I will tell you statistically. Now, our statistics are only so clear from what we can get. Like, we only know about boys that have experienced exploitation when they are able to come forward or they're identified somehow. So statistically, there are much more girls experience exploitation much more than boys. Now, I will tell you, like, from my years of experience, I believe that a lot of that has to do with this happening to boys just living further under ground and more in the shadows than it does with girls, because my experience is that there's a lot of shame around coming forward when someone has experienced abuse or exploitation. That's really true for girls, but there's an added layer of that for boys just because it's much less talked about and much less common. So it definitely happens for boys. I will tell you that exploitation in the male body just looks different. The recruitment process is different. The way that they experience exploitation is quite different from females, but it happens to them. And we are actually very hopeful that there are folks that will be able to step up and serve alongside us in serving boys. But For the Silent, we do exclusively serve girls, just because of the statistics and wanting to really be able to continue what Richie mentioned, which is like serving quality over quantity. And so in order to do that really high quality work, we have chosen to focus on girls. But boys have experienced exploitation. They're just much harder to find. And it lives much more in the shadows than it does for girls. And it's already pretty shadowed for girls.
Yeah. Hi, Arshad. Arshad said hi. I'm sorry if I'm saying your name wrong, Arshad. But hello. Let's see. Are there any more questions from anybody else? So I guess you pretty much already answered how we could help For the Silent with the cause. Well, while we wait on questions, if there's any more, I just wanted to share with you that the Homeschool Mom Summer Summit, we have decided to donate 5% of our earnings to For the Silent. And there are quite a number of speakers and sponsors who are also donating 5% of their affiliate commissions to For the Silent too.
Thank you guys so much. We so appreciate that.
Yeah,
you're new community partners and get to spread awareness.
Yeah,
you guys and know new pockets of our community.
Do I didn't hear that. I'm sorry.
I said even just the ability to connect with you guys and build relationships with new pockets of our community is a gift not only to us, but we believe that anyone who gets to learn the stories of and hear more about the resilient youth that we serve, their lives are changed. But I will tell you that volunteers and staff and donors, our lives have been changed by their strength and resilience and the ability just to have relationship with them.
Yeah. So just know that all the attendees, if you do upgrade to the lifetime VIP pass to get lifetime access to the summit, you are helping For the Silent and donating to them, since it goes to them, a part of the proceeds.
Thank you.
Yes, of course. We're more than happy to do it. We love your cause and we love what you're about. So.
Thank you.
Let's see. I don't think there are any more questions, so we were probably just going to wrap it up. Do y'all have anything else that you'd like to add before we say goodbye?
I think just a really simple thing for people would be if you're intrigued by any of this information or want to learn more, that joining our email list, which you can do on our website, it's at the bottom of every single page, is a really good way to keep learning and to learn how to connect with us. So we send out regular newsletters. And it's opportunities to serve alongside us. It may have informations, and sometimes we do Q&As or stories from the past couple of months. So if any of the things that we have shared today have resonated with you or sparked an interest in just, I want to learn more, I want to keep connecting to this issue as a whole, that's a really simple way to start doing that. So you would find our email list on forthesilent.org, and it's just at the bottom of every page on our website.
And I think a QR code will pop up here in a minute with a link to that newsletter sign up as well.
Perfect.
Yeah, let me pop it up now. So you can connect with them in a few different ways on their website, forthesilent.org, and also on Instagram and Facebook. You can pull out your phone and your camera and take it's not a picture, but the snapshot of that barcode and go to the newsletter sign up right there. And I think that is about it.
Well, Richie, thank you so much for having us today. We are so grateful that we had this time to chat with you and your followers.
Oh, thank you so much for hopping on and chatting with us and sharing all the information to the audience, the homeschool moms audience. I think that For the Silent and your cause is something that is close to the hearts of homeschool moms too. They're with their kids all day, every day, and I think they can also empathize strongly about the cause and to help with you guys too. So I'm glad that you shared where they could help if they wanted to learn more or sign up or donate. Or I'm glad that you guys shared how else they can prevent and help For the Silent. So thank you so much for having us too and joining. And I will see y'all later. Y'all have a wonderful afternoon.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Bye.